supporting all things military. Every major metropolitan newspaper in this nation supported the invasion of Iraq. We don't give statues in a park to people who fix health care. We don't, you don't get a statue in a park for ensuring that our kids can pay their college loans. You only get a statue in a park for going to war. So it's the Bring It On West Texas Sheriff, Lone Star Belt Buckle, macho part of the American psyche that somehow has crept in to our being, to our souls. And that's apparently why we have become a warrior nation and ended the lives prematurely of thousands and thousands of gifted young men and women who will never get to see a child graduate, never get to go to a tailgate party before a football game. Thomas Young went from singles bars to helplessly lying in bed for 10 years. And the sacrifice that we saw in our movie that I made with Ellen Spiro is a drama that's playing itself out in thousands of homes in this country, thousands of homes in this country, who have welcomed home loved ones who have been catastrophically injured because we have become a warrior nation. Before we introduce Kathy, let me show you just three, we have three short bits of film. The first voice you hear will be that of Eddie Vedder of Pearl Jam, who I happened to meet at a baseball camp. And I said, Eddie, I'm doing an anti-war documentary. He said, you want a song? I grabbed him with both hands. And he called Thomas at home. Thomas, Eddie Vedder. Of course, Thomas dropped the phone. Talked to him for about an hour. And in like less than a week, in a PD, in an MP3 file, I got the signature song of our movie for free. It opens, here's a part of it, as the film opens thusly.
I speak for a man who gave for this land, took a bullet in the back for his face, spilled his blood in the dirt and the dust, and he's come back to say that what he has seen is hard to believe, and it does no good to just pray. Oh, he asks of us to stand, and we must end this war today.
Now, Mr. President, today we're faced with the most solemn decision a lawmaker can make, whether or not to authorize the use of military force.
Voting for a course of action that will send young Americans off to fight and die for their country is the most solemn responsibility every member of this Congress will undertake.
We need to approach this issue as if we are sending our very own children to war.
When he puts on that uniform, he's my baby. Then I have fear.
This is probably the hardest decision I've ever had to make.
The great debate we begin today represents the opening act of a drama that promises to define the 21st century.
My hands tremble, but my heart still throbs. I read this quote. Naturally, the common people don't want war. But after all, it is the leaders of a country who determine the policy. And it is always a simple matter to drag the people along. Whether it is a democracy or a fascist dictatorship, or a parliament or a communist dictatorship, the people can always be brought to the bidding of the leaders. That is easy. All you have to do is tell them they're being attacked and denounce the pacifists for a lack of patriotism and exposing the country to danger. It works the same in every country. Hermann Goering, President of the Reichstag, Nazi Parliament, 1934.
It's hard to do for me, man. Really kind of wanted you to put the glove on the hand. But, okay. You seriously can push it a little quicker than that.
No, I can't.
Are you nervous?
Yeah.
Oh.
I've never done this before.
We generally tend to watch what goes on up there.
I'm trying to move it so it doesn't just go everywhere.
Good plan. I saw that work swimmingly. Look at that. I got pee on my hand.
You know what? It's not the first time I've had your pee on my hand.
Well, you know, if you make a film, you'll go door to door to get people to watch it. We won a lot of awards, but we sold no popcorn. This is not a take your girl to the movie. People are wobbling when they come out of this film. By the way, the CATHY scene was cleaned up. The original, Thomas put himself out there. It was really this is a warrior turned anti-warrior. And I remember a general once said, when the soldier is shot on the battlefield, the first thing he wants is his mother. He wants her now. He doesn't want her tonight, tomorrow, right now. When Cathy went to Walter Reed and Thomas arrived from law school, he was totally drugged. And he opened his eyes. And the first thing he said, he saw Cathy looming, was "Mommy, too soon."
Yes.
You just made that point. And, you know, the warriors don't see this.
Yes.
And we want a media that shows it. A mainstream media. Shows pain. And here's just one drama of thousands of other families who have sustained this kind of pain. And so, I want to thank her now once once again publicly for having so much faith in us, for letting us in to her life, and for being so patient as we made this film without script, never knowing really where we were going. I didn't know what Thomas's politics were. And when I came to Kansas City for the first time after meeting him at Walter Reed, I sat down and I noticed on the coffee table was a bumper stickers. And one of the bumper stickers said, "Draft Republicans." And I thought, wow, I've got a brother here who shares my politics. And here's just one of so many mothers who are so grateful for MFSO, Military Families Speak Out, and has been very much a part, along with Cindy Sheehan and others. Here's a real mother. This is a mother who's seen it. I'm pleased to give you Kathy Smith.
This is very difficult for me. As some of you know, I lost Thomas in November. It was the day before Veterans Day. I guess I'm here really to share with you how I came to this movement. Part of it was this man, but when Thomas was first injured in April of '04, we were struggling with how to deal with everything we felt, because so much of our world is about war and the glorification of war, and we did not believe that he had at any time suffered all of this for any noble cause. So we located MFSO, Military Families Speak Out, and Iraq Veterans Against the War. And IVAW became, to us, a lifesaver, as well as MFSO. For Thomas, it reminded him that he had a voice, and that people would listen to him, and that he could make a difference still. He felt very impotent being in his wheelchair. And IVAW and MFSO and our movie and all of that reminded him that he could still be heard. So we joined on Phil with this journey, and we made the movie. And towards the end of '07, it was a beautiful time for Thomas. He had started dealing with his injuries and had made a complete turnaround and was a totally different person. He understood that there were 10,000 things that he could no longer do, but there were still thousands of things that he could. And so we went all over the country and spoke, and at universities was an amazing thing to speak to 19-year-old boys, that it was for them something that they wanted to do, to join the military, and they might come home in a flag-draped coffin, and that was okay. But you watch their eyes when you say, "You may never have sex again." Whoa, no, I don't want to do that. They wanted no part of that. And so for us, this whole journey, every 18-year-old that we convinced not to join the military, to get a Pell Grant, or to take out a little debt, unfortunately, to go to college, not to go to college that route, that was worth everything that we did. And to come here today, they wanted us to share with you things that you could do to get involved again. And, you know, after Obama took over, we lost a lot of the momentum in the anti-war movement. And I asked any one of you here, do you think what you have gone through today is harder than what Kevin and I have gone through? How can fighting against another war be more difficult than what we're going through? And I could give you 100 websites that you could get on to help veterans, or you could get into MFSO or IVAW. But a week ago, 2 weeks ago, I was in Washington, D.C. My son's picture, David J., who's an amazing photographer, did a exhibit of, it's called The Unknown Warrior, and it's a bunch of wounded veterans, wounded soldiers, and it makes you take a look at their wounds, and David J. was asked why he did this. And the reason that we made this movie and the reason that he showed this is because everyone that was involved in starting this war and going to war and not fighting against this war is responsible for everything that happened to these soldiers. And it's imperative that you see what this did to our families. And afterwards, I spoke to Admiral Mullins. I'm sure all of you know who Admiral Mullins was. During the war, he was in every press conference. He sat there and talked about the wonderful things we were doing. And he came up to me nearly with tears in his eyes and said, "I wish we could have done more." And I said, "I think you did enough." But I guess why I'm here to speak to you today is while I could share all of these websites and tell you how you could get involved, I think from what I've seen lately in every veteran that I speak to, not only in Iraq and Afghani veterans, but also Vietnam veterans, the one thing that they need more than anything is just for us to listen. And that's how we can help more than anything, because we're losing 22 a day. So we're not listening. We're not listening. Yeah, just to suicide. We're losing more now to suicide than we lost during the war. So I guess that's all I'm here to ask you to do, is just to listen. Thank you for being here today.
Now questions.
Well, we want to win this now.
Yeah.
We see you as, you are people who could very well take a place on this panel. You've demonstrated your interest in this issue, and you're the real Americans. You believe in dissent, without which there is no democracy, after all. And it's just unfortunate that what I learned here is at a time when we need free speech the most, we're told to shut up and sing. And millions of Americans to this day believe, these are church-going, tax-paying Americans, who believe that to criticize the president if he's calling a war is somehow unpatriotic. And that's when we need your voice the most, and you believe that too. So let's hear from you now. Who among us here wishes? Sir.
But you're going to have to come down. We can't move.
Well, I mean, I can speak pretty loud.
You know what? Yeah, good. That's a good idea. With the fewer moving parts we have. By the way, the longer you speak, the less likely it is other people will have a chance. So let's hear a robust sense of how this audience feels. Sir.
So my name is Court Dorsey. I live in Western Massachusetts and founded an organization called the Veterans Education Project. Mr. Lucey is a part of our organization. We started 30 years ago, over 30 years ago, helping military vets, especially Vietnam vets at the time, to go into schools where the recruiters were and tell the real stories to young people about their military experience, so that they could have real stories to use when they're evaluating what the recruiters were telling them. It's a storytelling model in which we find that people telling honest stories about their military experience without glorifying war in any way connects immediately with young people and helps them to evaluate. It's good for the young people, it's good for the vets. And they practice by talking with each other, telling their stories to each other. And I think Mr. Lucey today has given an example of how powerful storytelling can be in getting us to reflect on what we're doing. It's something any community can do, is to bring its vets forward who want to tell the stories without glorifying it, so that people can evaluate war. Check out the Veterans Education Project in Western Massachusetts. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, ma'am. Yes, please.
Hi. My name is Elizabeth Kaplan. I'm from New Jersey. I'm one of the founding members of NJ 9/11 Aware, because the reason given for people being sent to be killed was 9/11, and the reasons why I'm sorry,
No, I want everybody to hear you.
Okay, I'll continue to shout. More people protested before the Iraq War around the world than in any war in the history of this planet, and yet the small percentage of people who wanted it to happen used the Downing Street memo to make it happen and fix the intelligence around the plan, okay? We had the Liberty, we had on and on and on.
We were popular.
And Syria, and when 300,000 of us surrounded the Capitol building before the election, there was Cindy Sheehan had a die-in because we say enough already with the war. When we marched to the Pentagon to protest capitalism and Goldman Sachs between the election of President Obama and the inauguration, we had maybe 10,000 people because they thought, oh, well, we have a Democrat in the White House now. No more Texan, no more, all hat, no cattle. And he has made it so much worse that people can sit like video games in Nevada and kill children and American citizens overseas at the touch of a button.
Yes, ma'am.
Why are we not protesting that? And my second question is, how does the administration, do the powers that be address the moral injury? Because they have to defend the war and the meaning of war and the perpetuation of war in order to keep, you as a hero. I forgive you.
Yes.
Do you want to respond?
Yeah, I think, with the question of how does the administration view the moral injury, they tell themselves stories and narratives that what they're doing is just. They paint the world in black and whites. This is a battle of good versus evil. They rationalize and they apologize. They say, I can tell you with this administration, having served under the Bush administration, with the Obama administration that came in, the attitude was, even though they were going to do the same thing in Afghanistan that the Bush administration had tried in Iraq, the attitude was, well, it's different, we're Democrats. And that was literally the reasoning for their ability to win the war, their ability for their war to be right, to be justified, to be morally defensible. Same thing too with the drone strikes, which as you talk about, we kill for every target we go after, we kill at least 28 civilians. So every time the United States has said we're going to try and kill terrorist X, at least 28 civilians die. And they say that's the price of it. That's the price of keeping ourselves safe. And if you question on that, they say, well, don't you remember 9/11? And then you say, yeah, of course I remember 9/11. And wasn't there 9/11 report that said we had all the intelligence to stop it if we just put the pieces together? Let alone the reason why 9/11 happened was because these people were upset that we had hundreds of military bases throughout the Middle East and unwavering support for Israel, and our sanctions had killed 500,000 Iraqis. Wasn't that what the 9/11 hijackers in their martyrdom videos said? So it's that. They tell themselves these tales and these narratives that justify, that excuse, that apologize for their actions.
What do they tell you?
They tell me?
What do they tell you?
They don't say anything about it. They tell you they expect you to do your job, they expect you to be professional, they expect the media and society to provide that role, provide with moral support. I think the best example of that is that last week or 2 weeks ago we found out that the Department of Defense pays for sporting events to highlight service members. So you go to a sporting event and okay, it's the third quarter of the football game, highlight the veteran, and some guy's there in his uniform and everyone stands and claps and says thank you for your freedom without questioning it because they feel like they have to say that or they're a bad American. So they do that. They allow the media and society to justify your actions. I get to go on a plane before every one of you do, right? Because why? Because I killed Iraqis? But that's society tells me. Yeah.
Sir.
Yeah, my name is Ken Siegel, and this is a question for Ray McGovern. about the CIA. And the question goes like this. COINTELPRO, we now know was the FBI acting as the National Political Police, followed by the CIA's activities with MK Ultra, in which they kill lots of people with chemistry, including LSD. A terrible, going on for decades, and maybe still go. Now we have the revelations about the agencies possibly making up the whole through Sally Hirsch's recent article about the assassination of Osama bin Laden, that it may be a total fabrication. Question. This all takes us back to 9/11, because as Hirsch makes clear, the CIA and the Pakistani intelligence service, the ISI, now, they were no doubt like that before 9/11. Can we find a connection? I'm not saying that the Vice President Dick Cheney organized 9/11, but it would appear when you start looking at all the hard evidence that the Pakistani intelligence and the CIA.
Yeah, well, let me answer it as briefly as I can.
Yeah.
People ask me, you know Dick Cheney, I mean, don't you think he'd be capable of 9/11? And I say, of course I believe that, but I don't do faith-based intelligence.
No.
Now, is there a cover-up? Of course there's a cover-up. The 9/11 Commission report was a cover-up. How do I know that? The two chairmen of the 9/11 Commission wrote a book, and they said, we were set up to fail. We were not given enough money, not given enough time, not given enough access to sensitive information. We were set up to fail. This is Governor Kane from across the river there in New Jersey, and Lee Hamilton, the so-called Democrat that they trot out for such occasions, okay? All right, now, isn't that great that they were set up to fail? You know, it would have been really nice if they told us at the time, right?
Right.
Okay? So what's needed is an independent investigation, pure and simple. And what I really don't like is people looking for the right answer. I'm a New Yorker, all right? I'm a New Yorker, all right? Now, we have a right to find out what happened. And when we're called conspiracy theorists just for asking the questions that Kane and Hamilton didn't answer, well, that's beyond the pale. We're not conspiracy theorists. We just want to let the truth is, because the truth matters in this case. 9/11 was the most important event to happen so far in this country, in this century.
Yes. Right on.
Right on.
Gentleman here.
Yes, I went where war. I didn't go, and you got it for movements. I have granted sensitive objector status.
Thank you.
Yes.
You were?
Yes.
Maybe he just mentioned that he didn't want to go. He didn't go. He's a conscientious objector.
And the Iraq War.
The Iraq War.
No, the Iraq War.
The Iraq War?
Yes.
Yes. You didn't go?
Yes.
You're a SEAL?
Yes.
Good for you.
I have something to throw in here. I know you've been waiting a long time, and you're next, I promise. But I have a friend here, Brenda, and speaking of CO, this is kind of personal to us right now. We have a gentleman that we know who has been declared as conscientious objector, and yet he's denied out of the military, and he's still at his base. And I'm going to let Brenda stand up. This is Brenda Noel. Her son was a combat medic. She's been an amazing support to me since Thomas's death. And I'm going to let her tell you about this gentleman that we know. Robert, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Brenda.
Come up here.
Come up here.
Oh.
You're too quiet. I find that hard to believe.
I swear a lot, so.
Try not to use the F word. These people don't like the F
He's a
word.
podium.
Yeah, good.
This is better. I feel more comfortable sitting next to him. Anyway, so I'm also a member of MFSO. My son was a combat